Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be the full build guide showcase for the Burning Dagger Pillager's Gold Marksman. So the concept around this build is we are building around Pillager's Gold. Pillager's Gold gives us a lot of flat damage for burning daggers, and the reason why we're even playing a build today is some people were asking for content. First things off, we're in a content drought for last Epoch. Sure, I'll be obliged to assist in this. Also, as well, we were talking on stream earlier about Pillager's Gold because someone in chat brought it up that they wanted to try it out. And I was like, why are you trying to play with Pillager's Gold? And they reminded me, hey, Dread, there's a new idol that's out that actually works really well with Pillager's Gold. If you don't know, with the woven echoes and all that, they drop really good idols, and there's some really hot ones. Like, for instance, there's chance to find potion idol. It's a 1x1, and it can have either fire pen on it or armor and armor percent, which is kind of crazy because either you get a bunch of armor or you get a bunch of damage with fire pen. And in theory, if you can get a bajillion of these, you can get I think 60% pen from your idol slots while also getting a very large amount of flat throwing damage, because if you don't know how Pillager's Gold works, you get a bunch of flat damage for your burning dagger attacks based on your chance to find potions. And this ends up being just an absurd amount of flat damage for burning daggers. Now, this wouldn't be enough to make it viable. It definitely wouldn't be enough to make it be able to kill Aberoth, right? Like normal Aberoth, because this is kind of a meme build that's been around for a while. And only now has it become somewhat viable this patch. And that's with the introduction of Heartseeker. So Heartseeker not only has a node inside of it that just functions with burning daggers, right? It also has access to Ravager's Dart. Ravager's Dart allows us to turn Heartseeker into a throwing attack that automatically casts at a target, and we get a bunch of flat throwing damage based on the recurve chance, which is amazing because we want as much flat throwing chance as possible. Cool, like flat throwing damage. Then also as well, it gives us a bunch of burning daggers on recurve, which makes this build possible. Without Ravager's Dart, this probably would not be nowhere near as good as it currently is. It gives you a very large amount of burning daggers. If you just sit around and you watch how many burning daggers get made from Heartseeker, it's amazing. Now, you must be wondering, Dread, well, why are you doing this with Ravager's Dart instead of just self-casting your own Heartseeker? Well, it turns out there is a superior way of doing this where you run Ravager's Dart. Cool. Then you also run Cinder Strike, because Cinder Strike not only, of course, has the 50% more damage for global burning daggers, which is cool. It also gives you access to a very large amount of flat throwing damage from the buff. It also gives you a lot of percent fire damage. It also gives you fire penetration, and it also gives you a lot of flat dodge. So if we build up a bunch of bow attack speed and then spam Cinder Strike while also our Heartseeker is working on the boss, it ends up being a lot more efficient skill wise and stuff like that, because if you were just spamming Heartseeker, you wouldn't really have a reason to spam Cinder Strike. So it allows you to benefit from both skills at the same time without needing to click as much. So it's click efficiency, and that's why Ravager's Dart is the superior way to go about this, at least in my opinion. Also, as well, turning Heartseeker into a throwing attack means all that throwing damage generic that you get from of course Cinder Strike and on your gear and all that, because you want as much throwing flat damage as possible, right? It makes Heartseeker actually do a decent amount of damage. All this combined leads to a build that actually functions. Now, I will point out, this build is in Merchant's Guild. I chose to play Merchant's Guild with this character, mainly because the idols are pretty important, as you get a lot of flat throwing damage for your burning daggers based on your idols. So you definitely want to play this in a Merchant's Guild situation, or if you have a bunch of these idols already sitting around, which I don't think you probably would have. I think there might be a prophecy for idols. I'm not entirely sure for the mini ones, the ones, these mini ones. I don't know if you'll be able to get it or not in COF, but in trade you can get a bunch of them, and if you just choose to not have a secondary affix on them, you can get a lot of them very cheaply, right? And that's another thing about this build, was it was really cheap to get set up, mainly just because obviously not only is it in the twilight years of trade, it also is because like everything that we're using other than the Dragon Song is something that people usually don't use, because people don't use Pillager's Gold, people don't use Ravager's Dart as often, like people don't use these items, right? So that's why the build ended up being like really cheap in the end. Like most of it was just favor, right? Now, of course, I'm like super giga rich in trade because, you know, I played a lot of trade for the first week. Now, overall, how do I think of the build? It's a meme build. It's not going to be better than a meme build, right? Like, you can kill Aberoth. It can do like 700, 800 corruption. It could probably do 1,000 corruption if you made yourself tanky. That's the biggest complaint I have, is I did not make myself tanky enough, nor did I have the ill or want to make myself tankier, mainly just because, like, you know, this is a meme build. Like, there's no point in investing that much more currency. But I'm sure if you invested more currency into the build and, you know, there was an actual thriving trade economy where I could get access to better items, it would be great. So yeah, all that being said, let's go in game and talk about the build more in detail, shall we? Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you like content like this. Make sure to leave a comment down below if you want to see more content like this, as well as, you know, I don't really do meme builds that often. If you want to see more meme builds from trade, let me know. We can pump out a bunch of them for fun. All right, so here we are in game with the character. Let's go over everything, shall we? So first things off, we'll go over the skill choice. So we have a level 30 Cinder Strike. How did we get a level 30 Cinder Strike? Well, we get +2 from our bow, which is really nice. We get +4 from our gloves. I'm not entirely sure if this is worth it or not, but you can get very low LP Falcon Fist with like 3 LP. Eventually you'd want like double HP on this instead of those prefixes, but like, you know, I just threw together what I had. You definitely want as much HP on this as possible, right? Cool. Then we have a Pillager's Gold with a +4 to Cinder Strike. Now, this must seem like it's expensive and all, but Pillager's Gold has like a level 17 LP, I believe. So you can get like a 3 LP one very quickly, especially in COF. Same thing with Falcon Fist, right? And Dragon Song can get a 1 LP one very easily. That second LP on the bow isn't helping us at all. So eventually, you know, like you can get gear like this very easily, this specific setup with the plus levels. That is not that expensive. And now that we have access to currencies like Runes of Havoc and Runes of Redemption, it means that, you know, it won't be as hard to, you know, get to level 30 on Cinder Strike. Now, you don't actually need level 30 on Cinder Strike. You just need level 30 if you want to use Elusive for a bunch of course, dodge rating flat. You don't actually need this. This is just simply if you want to actually have all of that flat, you know, flat. So cool, right? Now, let's talk about the skill choices, shall we? Mainly, all we care about is getting to Molten Arsenal so we can attack with a Cinder Strike, make more burning daggers. Then we get the minus mana cost and the more damage. This is global burning daggers, which is cool. We also run fire breathing, so we throw 5 burning daggers, and they actually do decent damage, unironically. And then we also run Umbral Conflagration, so we can actually make some shadows, right? Make some shadows here. And they also throw burning daggers, which leads to us actually having a decent amount of clear, which is pretty exciting. Having decent clear with burning daggers is like actually exciting because, you know, for the longest time, like burning daggers don't pierce enemies. So being able to make this many burning daggers just by sitting around, while also being able to make all this extra burning dagger with, you know, shadows and like attacking with Cinder Strike, all this combined leads to us actually having like a functioning build, which is great because burning daggers definitely wasn't functioning before this patch, let me tell you. Then 5 points into oil coating, lots of percent damage, just extra percent damage. Then fire pen, lots of fire pen. And this is just global fire pen, so this will affect our hit, which is good. Then the dodge rating stuff. Then the flat throwing damage here. We can get to like, I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. Let me see here. I don't know how many stacks we get up to on single target. Get to like 20, 10, 18, something like that. 18. That's like another like 100 flat on top of all the other flat. Now, when it comes to this kind of stuff, you must be wondering, Dread, well, we're already getting a bunch of flat from our Pillager's Gold. Why do we want throwing flat like that? Well, not only do we have Umbral Blades for extra single target, we also have Heartseeker, which is a throwing attack for extra single target, right? When we have all that flat. So, you know, It's actually doing damage, by the way. Like the Pillager's Gold is actually doing decent damage. Just pointing that out there. Like it's okay. Like it does damage, right? You could, in theory, probably make this do even more damage if you had plus levels and stuff like that. I'm not entirely sure what you grab though, because the biggest problem is like, you know, obviously there's not that many points to grab for the throwing version because you can't grab like the bow damage and all that. So like whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Cinder Strike. Now for Heartseeker, all we care about is as many recurves as possible, mainly because we're going to go down to Against All Odds, Molten Arrowstorm, and we're going to grab Blades of the Pyre. This makes it so that we always get a Burning Dagger on recurve. So I'm going to take my hands off the keyboard. All of those Burning Daggers you see that are being created and thrown out, that is Heartseeker. Trust me, Heartseeker plus Ravager's Dart is the way to go with this setup. It makes it so you automate burning daggers, and it makes the clear feel a lot better. And then when you need extra burning daggers, you can use Cinder Strike. I think you can go the other way with Heartseeker, but your clear will be worse. It won't be automated, but in theory, you might do more single target, and that's a might. Because like I said, you get a lot of buff stuff from Cinder Strike, so I'm not sure if you'll get extra single target. But, you know, still, lots of recurve chance. Recurve chance here, recurve chance here, recurve chance here, recurve chance here, and then like all of that to get extra, you know, burning daggers. Then also as well, we can actually get a bunch of flat throwing fire damage from this. So right now we're getting to like 10-ish. That's another like 40 flat. Remember, we want as much flat as possible because like our burning daggers probably have like 500 flat. I don't know how much flat they have. I'd have to go count. But essentially, it makes it so that we do more damage because this is the only way of actually scaling the damage of burning daggers outside of very specific things because, you know, we only have so many generic more damage modifiers. So we want as much flat damage as possible. Cool. Then we grab, you know, Hidden Skewer for just some Dust Rod chance, but it's not that many Dust Rods, like every so often. And that's pretty much it for Heartseeker. Then for, you know, Umbral Blades, just like the generic explosion stuff. I don't really need to go into this. Smoke Bomb's a little bit more important because we want Smoke Blades, which is another like 80 flat throwing damage. And then it's also like Shadows for access to Umbral Conflagration for clear. And then we also go for the movement version of Smoke Bomb. So we can move, shoot, and get the extra clear. We also have throwing damage leech extra here as well, which is nice. And then of course, you know, Silver Shrouds. Eventually you can go into this if you like get some flat and get some like plus levels Smoke Bomb. That's not that big of a deal. Then for the last skill, you can run whatever you want, to be honest. You could, in theory, run Shift and then Shuriken for armor, but I like Smoke Bomb way more, in my opinion. You could run Shift and then run this on like the, you know, normal without the traversal if you wanted, and then just run Shift for more mobility. It's up to you. There's not really much else that helps us. Like, in theory, Dark Quiver could help, but like that's very sketchy. Like you could put on Dark Quiver, you could get the Shadow on pickup, you could get the like the arrow attack, like, you know, some of the black arrow. Like you could do all this and all that if you really care about it. Like, I don't know, like whatever, it's not that big of a deal, right? You could put dark arrows in the build instead of decoy, but I like decoy because decoy is nice for you know, not dying as a marksman. And that's pretty much it for the skills. Now let's talk about the passives that are important. Nothing too crazy. We just want as much bow attack speed as possible everywhere, just as much bow attack speed as possible from this, all these sources. We want, you know, as much crit as possible, generic, right? We want the ward generation from covering fire and siege quiver. We probably should actually grab Storm Fletcher. I forgot to grab Storm Fletcher. You should actually grab Storm Fletcher, mainly just because like it gives you more ward gen. That was actually what I was missing. That makes sense. I'm dumb. I'll have to fix that later. I know I'm not entirely sure how I'd fix it. Probably get rid of some crit or some flat HP here and there, but like we like the flat HP. So we'll figure that out eventually. But like there's nothing too crazy on the passive tree. It's very generic, right? Like just HP. and anything that can assist us. HP and anything that can assist us. It's not really it's not rocket science. You could get this flat, but it's so inconsequential at that point because we have so much flat. It's not worth trying to go all the way up here for all this flat. Not really, right? So that's a passive. It's like nothing too crazy. It's just a marksman, right? Then let's go over gearing. This is the more important part. So I just want to let you know, I played this as a meme build. So I put everything together at the same time. I would definitely not try to play this on a cycle start scenario. At least I would assume you don't want to. I might try one eventually, maybe an Ignite version. I'm not entirely sure. We'll do something like that, but definitely not like the cheapest build ever, which we'll go over. But like, you know, it's cheap for trade, but like the items aren't as easy to get, especially if you're playing COF. So let's go over the items. First things off, Pillager's Gold is mandatory. You want a Pillager's Gold with at least +4 to Cinder Strike because it gives you all that flat throwing damage for burning daggers. We have a very large amount of chance to find potions. Do we have the stack here? Oh, here it is, 500%. So you have 500%. This is giving us almost 250 flat for our throwing attacks, which is just fucking blitteringly insane. And then we also have like generic throwing damage here, 32 from like one affix. And then like we have a bunch from like, you know, all of our skills and all that, which is amazing, right? Lots and lots of throwing flat damage, which is crazy, right? Very crazy. But it's the only way to actually scale the burning daggers in an effective way, right? And eventually maybe double HP instead of that throwing net damage. We have a decent amount of damage. I'd rather be tanky. So you'd probably like run double HP there. Now, the other mandatory items, I don't think Falcon Fists are mandatory, but getting +4 to Cinder Strike helps out immensely. But you could just run like a pair of gloves with armor and HP or whatever, like maybe some crit. That would be fine. Nothing too crazy. Dragon Song's pretty good. It helps you cap your crit way quicker. You definitely want the crit bow attack speed mod on it, and then eventually you want the double attack speed on it, or you can get Fire Pen. That works too, but either one, that works. You can also get crit multi. We don't have as much crit multi as I'd like. That's actually one of the weaknesses of the build, is I only have like 300% crit multi. You could get way more crit multi than this if you get like crit multi on the bow and crit multi on the quiver. So you can get way more damage if you really wanted to, right? Another item I would call mandatory is Ravager's Dart. Ravager's Dart just makes the build feel way smoother. I wouldn't even play the build, even think about playing the build until I had a Ravager's Dart. Now, you could go with a Ravager's Dart with like double HP modifiers on it. I just went for as much damage as possible because I'll be honest, when I started making the build, I didn't really assume that it was actually going to do damage. So I try to shove in as much damage as possible, but apparently it does damage, so that's fine. Definitely can afford to like go double HP on Ravager's Dart instead of going like the plus levels of Shuriken there. But plus levels to decoy and shurikens give us generic % throwing damage, so it's like useful. But you definitely could go with like recurve with Heartseeker as well. Like there's a lot of different things you could do with this, but generally you want to be tankier than what I'm at. Pretty much I am at the bare minimum of chonk. You want way more chonk than this, in my opinion. And that's pretty much it for mandatory items. Everything else, well, actually, no, wait. The scavenger is very important because you can get a very large amount of % chance to find potions. Right now, we have like 220, like 240%, which is like 100 flat for your throwing damage. This is definitely where a large chunk of your throwing flat comes from. And you also get a large chunk of it from your amulet as well. So make sure you get T7 throwing on both of these. Now you could maybe not run the scavenger and just run a belt with T7 throwing, like T7, like chance to find and some throwing flat. That could work too, but like it's up to you on that. But scavenger is definitely something you eventually want, especially like a 4 LP scavenger would be amazing because you get throwing flat as well. And the prefix of this would be just utterly absurd, right? And that's it for like mandatory items. Now, of course, well, this is technically mandatory, but this shouldn't be that hard to get, right? Just throwing on like increased chance to find potions in your amulet, crit multi, eventually maybe frailty sealed 1, so you can like get rid of this idol, right? That would be fine. And then HP eventually, so you can be tanky. I'm running this chest mainly just because I made it like fuck. Like it was like a few days into the cycle and it just gives me a lot of HP. You could just go with anything that gets a lot of HP and you'd be fine. Also as well, you could go with like plus levels to Heartseeker, which gives bow attack speed percentage, which is insane for us. And you could also go for recurve chance with recurve chance with Heartseeker, which gives us more burning daggers, which would be good, right? Both of those options are fine. Then we have a Singwing Horde. This just has a bunch of bow attack speed on it and some HP. Definitely want one with like, crit multi probably, and then like resistance eventually. But bow attack speed tier 7 on this is just a lot of extra bow attack speed, which is amazing for us, right? Then for our rings, I'm running double Flames of Midnight with percent damage. This was a mistake. Just go with HP instead. Having pen is really good for us because we don't have that much access to pen, especially if you don't get the pen flat damage idols. Definitely important, but pen is important. You could just run normal rings. You could run the ignite rings, from the fire dungeon, right? You could run those for ward gen. There's a lot of different rings you could run. I just ran Flames of Midnight because I knew it would give me the most damage, but you can definitely go with like, normal rings, right? Definitely can go with normal rings, go like the throwing flat on the ring, fire percent damage, and then HP. That would be fine. Like that would be completely fine. I just went with this because I didn't expect this to actually do damage. Then then for the boots, I just used whatever boots I had access to. You use whatever boots you get, anything that gives you the most defenses and it's most HP. If you have like a 2 LP pair of Blood of the Exiles with like movement speed and HP, wear those. Like whatever you have with good movement speed. And then that's pretty much it for that. Now for idols, I'm running a Throne of Ambition, of course. More fire damage, one of the only ways of getting generic more damage for our, burning daggers. Then just a smorgasbord of 10% chance, increased chance to find potions, and penetration. Do you need all this? Not really, but it's nice to have. You don't need this. It's just like eventually you want to transition into this, especially with all the armor it gives us. It's like actually a nice amount of armor too, by the way. Like either you do armor or fire pen. Probably fire pen. It's dependent on what you want to do. Now for blessings, real quick, I got Void Res because it's cheap. Although if you have better Void Res than me, you can run crit multi or throwing damage leech. That will work too. Resistance on Lagan, all res on this, and you get some blind chance somewhere. Then armor, and then armor. Eventually you could re-roll those. I'd need better ones. And that's pretty much it for blessings. And that's pretty much it for the character. That's pretty much it for the build. With all that being said, I would just build more HP probably. Bye, guys.